Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. In this video I'm going to run through my second leg session of the week from start to finish, explaining why I'm doing certain exercises, maybe provide some tips about how to execute the exercises a little bit more efficiently. So at the moment I've got the luxury of indulging upon 2 sessions of self-torture each week, and that's basically what leg training is. If you're doing it properly, it shouldn't be pleasant and it shouldn't be easy. So I start off with a short but sharp bout of cardiovascular work, and it's been on the treadmill typically, but I pulled my calf the early part of last week, so I've been doing it on the Stairmaster or the cross trainer. I spent some time catching my breath after that before moving on to the abs, and I always start off with windmill or broomstick twists. I do 100 reps non-stop, and I'm still kind of out of breath, so it's difficult for me to control my midsection. That's really what I'm trying to do, make my waist as tight as possible, as small as possible, and get a good contraction at each twist. And it's not easy to do when you're kind of panting after cardio, but it's really good for midsection control. So now I just move on to like a circuit. I'll make a circuit up each day. I do abs every day at the moment, and it just happened to be for this day a little mini circuit, crunches, knees up crunches, full crunches, and then to my oblique work. And I actually pulled my back doing some Romanian deadlifts 3 days prior to this. So this was recorded on the Saturday. I pulled my back on the Wednesday. So Wednesday and Thursday I couldn't actually walk properly. It was really bent up. Basically it felt like a knuckle popping in the left side of my lower back. It's happened before. Form probably slipped on some of the reps. I think I've got to be a bit careful, because after illness I'm really eager to push those weights back up again, maybe a little bit too fast. But yeah, it is what it is. Through consistent stretching and foam rolling, and trying to be as mobile as possible, I got myself into a position where 3 days later I was able to train legs again. So here I am doing some more foam rolling and stretching to limber myself up for the oncoming onslaught. This workout is atypical in that I start with the isolation movements, so hamstring curls to lead, followed by quad extensions, and I do these prior to the squats. The first session is a kind of regular protocol where I start with heavy squats. What I will say is these isolations really serve well to loosen me up and get everything nice and warm for the squats. The squats feel a lot better post isolation work compared to when I do them first. So I can probably forego the foam rolling if I stick to this. I wanted to do it for this session because the back was still quite tight. But yeah, it really feels good. And I'm just a lot aware of my leg muscles when I squat, as opposed to just kind of moving up and down and doing what it takes to get that weight up. I'm actually a little bit more mindful of how things feel. So doing a warm-up in this way, it almost, I mean, it's not quite pre-exhaustion, not in the proper sense, but it is kind of, in a loose fashion, pre-exhausting those muscles, and you become more mentally connected to those muscles once you move into the compound. It's a strategy that can be quite beneficial for people that struggle with feeling certain muscles on a particular compound lift. You can do it with anything really, and I've always said this in the past, proper pre-exhaustion is just great. Flies before bench press, or pullovers before heavy rows, quad extensions before squats. I mean, the list goes on. Really, really, really beneficial for people that struggle to kind of feel those heavy movements. So I start off with hamstring curls, and it's a rest pause style. So set to failure, rest about 10 seconds, another set, rest, another set, and then I finish up with some partials. And I use the same protocol on the quad extensions here. So finishing up with some partial movements just to try and eke every last drop out of the set that I can. And I will rotate between HIT style work and more of a high volume approach, depending on how I feel. Just make sure that you log it in the journals and don't try and compare, a HIT week to a volume week and vice versa, because it's going to be really hard to keep track of your strength. So make sure that you compare a HIT workout to your last HIT workout on that muscle group, and the same as the volume style of training. So now moving on to the squats, I'm using the Swift machine. Feels really comfortable. I'm actually elevating my heel quite considerably to place more emphasis on the quads. This This is especially important as I've just done the quad extensions prior to this, so they're already nicely warmed up. And I just feel, as I said before, a lot more kind of in touch with the quads. So I think the platform and the shoes are probably overkill. It feels more comfortable with the platform and just regular trainers. I think it's probably a little bit too much on the toes. I mean, I do feel it in the quads a lot. Especially the warm-up sets, I'm really trying to stay as upright as I can and let the knees really drive forwards and push from those toes, and the quads get a super burn on those warm-ups. As it gets heavier, I kind of just try and squat normally, but obviously because of the angle of the foot, the weight tends to be pushed from the toes more so than the heels, a lot more than what you'd usually see with a regular squat. So it's a great idea to incorporate these into your routine if you're struggling with quad development and you are squatting and you're not noticing your quads are growing. Then try these out. Sissy squats as well. Anything where you're pushing from your toes as opposed to your heel is going to involve more front leg mass, quads, and anything where you're really pushing from the heels a lot more is obviously going to involve a lot more posterior hamstrings, glute hamstring tying. You tend to feel it in there. So this next exercise I'm really enjoying actually. It's a form of lunge with the Smith machine. It's extra 5k over last week, and yeah, really pleased with how this training session went, bearing in mind 2 days ago I was struggling to walk straight, so I was contemplating whether or not to do these. I thought maybe it would stress my back a little bit, but I thought, what the heck, if squats went well, I'm sure this is going to go okay too. So I elevate my front foot with a plate, and I essentially just drag myself up with that front foot, really trying to minimise the push off with the back leg. And you can see from this angle here a little bit better. So without the front plate, I just don't feel I get quite the range of motion that I wanted. So that helps, an extra couple of inches. And then, just really trying to almost claw my foot and toes over the plate and kind of pull back on it and almost drag myself up that way. And the pump in the leg is fantastic, even from relatively low reps, 6 to 8 reps. So yeah, really happy with that one. No back niggle. A few reps more and a little bit more weight than what I did last week. So yeah, all good. So to wrap up the session, we've got some calf training. This is the seated calf raise machine. I'm not quite as keen on this as I am the standing calf raise machine. Unfortunately, this gym doesn't have one, so I have to make do with this. And this is predominantly my heavy exercise. I've gone up as high as I think 140. A little bit lower now, just trying to kind of build it back up after the illness. I use the sleeves to make it easier to wedge my knees under the pads. It also doesn't hurt as much because the pads can be quite nasty, not as soft as they should be, unfortunately. When you're lifting a lot of weight, it gets really uncomfortable. Just to get your legs wedged in underneath those pads. The setup's really important on this one. You've got to make sure it's perfect. So the next calf exercise is on the 45-degree leg press. I'm not really a fan of this at all. I did 2 quick sets, and that reiterated to me why I don't do this typically. It's far weaker than the standard horizontal leg press calf raises, in my humble opinion. It just feels more comfortable. I'm able to concentrate more on the calf, less on the hamstring when I'm in this position, for me personally. I go nice and heavy. I work each leg independently. One thing that you'll find with calves and forearms and biceps especially is that there'll be the biggest discrepancy between your right and left side on those muscle groups. So it really pays to do one leg at a time, I think. For me, calf training is mostly quite heavy. Very rarely I'll go above 10 or 12 reps for calves, and they seem to be growing quite nicely. So yeah, that's the session wrapped up. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to see more. Check out the description for links to my website. I offer online coaching exclusively for natural lifters. So if you're interested, then just fill out the form and I'll contact you to book in a consultation. Thanks once again. Stay strong.